My Little Dashie, First Day with Dashie. Written by Lonart8100, also known as me. Morning came as I slowly opened my eyes. The sun shined in through the window next to me and stung my eyes as though punishing me for waking up. Once I regained my vision, I looked across the room to the kitchen clock, which read 10:30 a.m. Luckily, it was a Sunday, so I didn't have to worry about being late for work. I then looked back down towards the floor I slept on, hoping to get another glimpse at the filly that I brought home last night. However, when I look to my side, I find she isn't there. I then look back up towards my father's old recliner and find her sitting on the far ledge of the left shoulder, trembling with fear. I slowly reach towards her, but she flinches away before I even make contact. I really don't find this all too surprising. After all, we just met last night, in the dark, when she was half asleep. Also taking into account is how young she is, and might not have a fully developed memory just yet. In truth, this is probably the first time she's ever seen me in full light. "It's okay," I gently say, slowly making my approach towards her. "I won't hurt you." She doesn't move, only stares with more curiosity. I get a little closer, and she steps backwards, tripping a little bit when her hoof slides off the edge. I don't move much further, as I fear she may lose her balance and fall. She then slowly steps to the side, and her weight causes the recliner to tip forward. The force causes her to lose her balance and fall off the edge. I then dart forward, catching her just before she hits the ground. My efforts go unrewarded, as she starts flapping her little wings and wiggles all four legs. She then starts making loud screeching noises as I hold her at a distance to avoid injury. The power jetting from her body soon becomes too great, as I start to lose my grip on her. I then slowly pull her towards my body, receiving a couple of kicks from her flapping legs. Fortunately, her body strength is not that powerful, so the worst I can expect are a couple of bruises. However, she becomes more terrified as she draws closer to my chest, and soon attempts to push me away with her front hooves, as she continues kicking me with her back ones. I then attempt to quiet her with a series of shh. Surprisingly, she starts to calm down, as though she didn't expect me to take such a course of action. Taking advantage of the moment, I then pull her into a hug, to which she gives no resistance. "There, there," I quietly say, stroking her mane. "See, I told you I wouldn't hurt you." She looks up with her large violet eyes. Though she remains still, I can tell she's not completely kosher with me just yet. "You want to hear a song?" I ask, to which she gives a semi-nod. I then sing a song that my mother used to sing to me when I had problems, a lullaby by Billy Joel. "Good night, my angel, time to close your eyes and save these questions for another day." As I sing, she falls asleep in my arms. I then pick up the blanket that was left sitting in my father's recliner and wrap her in it. I then carry her over to the couch and watch as she sleeps in my arms. I once again find myself asking, what is she doing here? And more importantly, what has become of me? Why am I acting this way? I'm a 25-year-old man, after all, who spent most of life alone and at a dead-end job. I've never really had anyone to take care of before, and really, Aside from My Little Pony Friendship is Magic, I'm not really much of a kind-hearted guy around the neighborhood. I almost feel like I shouldn't be the one taking care of her. Maybe she should be with some 8-year-old girl who loves taking care of animals. After all, isn't that who the My Little Pony franchise was originally meant for? But really, after seeing this sweet little filly, something happened last night. Something happened to warm my weak heart. And it feels so right. After about half an hour, she opens her eyes and looks up from her little blanket-made sleeping bag. She yawns and then places her front hooves over her growling stomach. "Are you hungry?" I calmly ask. She only looks at me, as though not fully understanding the question. "Here, let's go get some breakfast," I say, lifting us both off the couch and carrying her into the kitchen. As I walk, she wraps her front legs around my chest and pushes her face inward. I then get that same feeling of warmth that I felt last night. I look down and shed a small tear of joy. I then put the filly in a small high chair. It was the same one my parents had used when I was a baby. I still don't know why they kept it all these years, but it was quite handy for the time being. Of course, there was the matter of what to feed her. She seemed to like the carrots last night, but the question was, would they have any kind of negative effect on her? She is a filly, but not one from this world. Could food from this world affect her differently than in Equestria? Could I have just poisoned her last night? No. Otherwise, how could she be here now? Maybe I'm thinking about this too much. I decided to play it safe and got her some more carrots. Once again, I broke them up like I did last night. Maybe someday she could eat them whole, but for now, it's best not to fix what isn't broken. However, once I get them in her mouth, she spits them out in my face. Now what? "What's wrong?" I ask. I don't really know why I asked. It's not like she can talk. She then started reaching out for something that was behind me. I turned around and noticed a small jar of peas on the back counter. Is that what she wanted? I went over and held it up over her head, to which she continued to reach for it, convincing me that this was in fact what she wanted. I unscrewed the top and scooped some up in a small teaspoon. I then fed it to her slowly, and she happily chewed it with a smile. I couldn't help but let loose a big smile of my own. She just looked so adorable chewing her food like this. She then signaled that she wanted more, so I gave her a bit more. Finally, after about 6 spoons, she started jolting her head forward a bit. At first, I couldn't figure out what was going on. Was she sick? And about to throw up? Then I remembered she was just a baby, so maybe she needed to be burped. I then picked her up and held her against my shoulder as I gently patted her back. Sure enough, she let out a small burp and rubbed her head against my shoulder with a smile. The rest of the day was spent playing around the house. Despite her young age, she had a very curious mind and wanted to explore every inch of my house. I led her around with a small game of peekaboo in various areas, which seemed to keep her motivated. Then she came across the family picture on the living room wall. She eyed it very curiously, as though she didn't know what to think. I honestly didn't know what was going on. She was curious about everything in the house, but this in particular stood out to her. I knelt down and got close before speaking. This is me, along with my mommy and daddy, I said softly, feeling a little foolish for using the terms mommy and daddy. I heard the filly stutter. I couldn't believe my ears. Was she starting to talk? I seriously didn't expect her to speak so soon. Then again, I honestly have no idea how old she actually is. Perhaps she is capable of speech, and just hasn't learned it yet. I tried motivating her to speak, only managing to get her to say the first syllable. But before I knew it, she yawned and started to get down on her stomach. I simply smiled and gently scooped her up. I then carried her back to the couch and sat down with her in my arms. She was still awake, so I started to sing her the song again. Good night, my angel, time to close your eyes and save these questions for another day. The filly then started to close her eyes. Someday your child may cry, and if you sing this lullaby, then in your heart there will always be a part of me. Soon the little filly was asleep, and I myself started to fall asleep. All I could think about was how wonderful this day was, with this little angel, this little filly, this little Dashie. Then, before I closed my eyes, I heard something and looked down at the little filly. I saw her lips moving, and then she stuttered it. Her very first word, Daddy.